A very good evening to you and welcome to the news at 6 here on Rajya TV, where we're getting you the day's top developing stories. In fact, Monday evening, there's already a lot that's making news, so let's take you through the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaches Uzbekistan on the first leg of the 8-day visit to Central Asia and Russia, likely to meet Nawaz Sharif on the sidelines of the BRICS summit. Vyapam deaths continue in Madhya Pradesh. Trainee sub-inspector selected through the state board exam is found dead. The government denies that the death is linked to the scam. Supreme Court rules that unwed mothers can be the sole legal guardians of children, says disclosing identity of father is not necessary. And Greece votes no to austerity in the referendum. Eurozone debates what next as Greece's financial system teeters on the brink of a meltdown. Our top story. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today reached Uzbekistan on the first leg of his 8-day visit to Central Asia and Russia. The aim of his visit is to enhance strategic, economic and energy ties. He will also attend the BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Russia, where he is likely to meet his Pakistani counterpart, Nawaz Sharif. Here are the details.
Less than 2 months after returning from a journey that took him to China, South Korea and Mongolia, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi begins another whirlwind overseas tour, this time to Central Asia. Energy security will be top on Prime Minister's priority list as he begins the 8-day visit to 5 strategically positioned, resource-rich nations not far from India's borders. When he landed in Uzbekistan's capital, Tashkent, he was received at the airport by his Uzbek counterpart, SM Mirziyoyev. Both leaders met soon after Modi's arrival. Apart from energy, he is also likely to push for stronger trade and economic ties.
It is the first time that at least we know of, that in recent years that any leader is doing all 5 countries in one go. It's very important to go across and underline the serious intent that India has of becoming a partner with these countries and to bring across the potential of modern India.
After a one-day trip, Modi will go to Kazakhstan on Tuesday. He will then travel to Russia on 8th of July to attend the SCO summit in Ufa as well as the annual BRICS summit. India hopes to get the membership of the 6-nation group comprising of China, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. India and Pakistan are currently the observers.
India had formally applied for membership of the SCO prior to the summit in Dushanbe in September 2014. The only update to offer since then is that the SCO foreign ministers met in June in Moscow, and they have made a positive recommendation regarding India's membership to the summit.
Modi is also likely to meet his Pakistan counterpart Nawaz Sharif on the sidelines of the SCO summit. Though there has been no official confirmation, Pakistan has said that Sharif will hold important bilateral meetings with key leaders. If the two leaders meet, it would be their first face-to-face interaction since the two leaders shook hands in Kathmandu at the SAARC summit last year. With inputs from Akhilesh Suman, Bureau Report, Rajya TV.
Well, all eyes will be on whether that meeting eventually does take place in Ufa. In fact, our correspondent Akhilesh Suman is there and he's going to be tracking all developments, joining us now from there. Akhilesh, thanks so much for joining us here on the news at 6. Definitely the meeting, if at all it does take place between Modi and Nawaz Sharif, that is of course all what eyes are on.
Actually, it is a million-dollar question all the time, Tracy, that what Prime Minister thinks about Nawaz Sharif, because there is a lot many questions that has to be talked, and one of the major questions that has to be talked about the cross-border firing, and I think that in these days cross-border firing has come down. So there is some sense of understanding in the Indian leadership that yes, the cross-firing has come down. And another thing that in the SCO meeting and even in the BRICS meeting, one of the important agenda is that of connectivity. And you know that Pakistan is a major connecting land between India and Central Asian countries. So this makes a context whether Prime Minister Narendra Modi chooses to Nawaz or not. But the issue is very important, and it is so important that Pakistan is the shortest route between India and Central Asian countries via Afghanistan. So if Prime Minister chooses to talk to Nawaz Sharif on this question, I think it will become a happy situation for both the countries, and not only for both the countries, also from the Central Asian countries.
All right, we'll leave it there, Akhilesh. Thanks so much for joining us with those details there. An icebreaker definitely required between the two countries. We'll have to see what eventually takes place tomorrow. Meanwhile, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley will be leaving for a 4-day visit to Russia to attend the inaugural meet of the new development bank in Moscow on Tuesday. Jaitley will be participating in a meeting of the Board of Governors of the new development bank. India is hopeful of amassing more funds for infrastructure development from the BRICS Bank. The NDB, of course, will start with an initial paid-up capital of $50 billion, with each BRICS country contributing $10 billion. According to the Finance Ministry, he would also be attending a meeting of finance ministers of the BRICS nations later on Wednesday, which will also be attended by Prime Minister Modi. And talking big money, Greece's Finance Minister Yanis Varoufakis today sacrificed his seat just hours after Greeks rebuffed offers by its creditors for a bailout. Greece is now ready for negotiations with its creditors as a stunned European Union leadership called for an emergency meet. It is still not clear whether Greece will quit the Eurozone after an overwhelming 61% voted no in the referendum.
Hours after the Greeks voted resoundingly to reject the bailout measures proposed by international creditors, Greece's Finance Minister Yanis Varoufakis resigned on Monday. The outspoken minister announced his resignation on Twitter, saying he felt his departure would pave way for a resolution to the country's debt crisis. Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras is now determined to reach a last-ditch compromise with the European leaders.
What I imagine it happened is that Yanis wants to facilitate the effort of the Prime Minister to give a new boost to the negotiations. Our Prime Minister wants to go there with the Greece united and ask for to our partners to make similar concessions to those we have done.
Tsipras is expected to name a new minister to replace Varoufakis. Stunned European leaders have called for a summit in Brussels on Tuesday to discuss their next move. While Germany is still ready for talks, France said it is up to Greece to come back to the talking table with proposals.
Ici même, je n'ai pas été le seul à utiliser ce terme, je vous ai dit que le non emportait un risque considérable pour la Grèce. Dans ce risque pour la Grèce, il y a le risque de sortie de l'euro. Mais il n'y a aucun automatisme. De même que le vote ne veut pas dire automatiquement que la Grèce reste dans l'euro. Ce qui permettra de savoir si elle sort ou si elle reste.
The European Central Bank is also expected to meet to discuss whether to raise its emergency cash support for Greek banks. The vote rejecting the bailout package leaves Greece in uncharted waters, risking a banking collapse that could force it out of the euro. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, we were talking about the Greek referendum, and as a fallout of that, the Asian stock market started the day on a weak note but gained later. Markets in Hong Kong and South Korea posted their biggest one-day fall in 3 years as investors worried that the Greek debt crisis could deepen. Japan's Nikkei fell over 2%, with banks and financial shares selling heavily on the prospect of a dip in bond yields and on concerns about their potential exposure to the Europe crisis. However, shares in Shanghai rose due to support measures by Beijing. Back home in India, the market slumped over 300 points during intraday trade but recovered later to end on a positive note. Nifty 2 ending above the 8,500 mark.
This is a straight impact of referendum, outcome of the referendum which Greece had yesterday, where the people have rejected the terms and conditions which were given to them by the creditors of Greece debt. So now there is uncertainty. How the issues will go from here is something which is not certain. We don't know. It's uncharted territory. And that's why there is nervousness in the investor, not only in India but world over.
All right, for more on this, let's speak to Himanshu Vatt, Senior Editor with the Economic Times, joining us in studio this evening. Himanshu, thanks so much for joining us again. Give us a sense, really, of the crisis that we're seeing in India, at least. You know, a knee-jerk reaction, some are, of course, calling it. But is there any long-term effect of what we're seeing in Greece?
See, there are two sides to it. First of all, whenever something major happens in the global financial system, the effect reverberates around the world. You know, so as in the morning, markets opened first in Japan, Korea, they were down, and then in India, they were down. Because there are global investors who are investing all over the world, so they take a position. And investors in India also are tracking these developments, and there would be some nervousness. The second part of it is what impact does it have? So there are some concerns that if Greece is to exit the Eurozone, there would be turmoil both in Greece and there would be some shockwaves in Europe also. So there could be some economic downturn which can lead to a fall, some contraction in demand in Europe. So this has already been reflected in oil prices, for example. Today, Brent crude oil has fallen below $60 for the first time since April, I think. There could be concerns about Indian exports to this region. It's a very important export destination for India. So if there is a setback in the economy in Europe, there would be global concerns about it. So there are two sides to it. First is the immediate market reaction, nervousness among investors, and second is what will be the overall economic impact eventually.
All right. But just talking about Greece, you know, at this point of time, unless the ECB really comes up with some kind of a rescue measure, most likely there is a possibility now, even bigger as they were in fact seeing compared to before, of a Grexit, of Greece, leaving the EU, or for example, in fact, the Euro. What happens in that kind of a situation? That is, of course, unusual for the EU as well.
Yeah. You see, if a country like Greece leaves the Eurozone, it will be the first major setback for the Euro from the time the common currency came up. And there are concerns, there are other economies which have had austerity measures. Ireland is one of them. There's some thought in Britain also whether they should remain a part of EU or not. So it can have impact in various aspects. As far as Greek is concerned, it might even have some positive impact because if they exit the euro, they will have their own currency. And once they have their own currency, they will have certain freedoms of action which they don't have just now. For example, they can devalue their currency to promote exports. They can insulate Greece a bit from the impact of other countries. So that is on the possible positive side. But the overall benefits of being in the euro, and one of the benefits that Greece has enjoyed because of being in the eurozone is that when it needed money in the past, it could borrow heavily.
Yes.
So that latitude, that a policy option, that will go away. And also, this has led to a bit of bad blood between Greece and the major strong economies in Europe, whether it is
especially Germany, France.
France. They are upset that why should they keep on funding the country which has not tightened its belt, because these countries have managed their own economies well. So to be in that region and being on the wrong side of these powers is not a very good thing for Greece.
All right, very quickly also, if you could just give us a sense of what we can see in Greece in the coming few days or the coming few months, in case there is, there is no rescue effort that is being made by particular banks. For the moment, their banks in the country are, of course, shut. There are reports that perhaps hoarding is going to be increased, salaries are going to get delayed. In that kind of a situation, how difficult is it going to be for the government there?
It is certainly a period of uncertainty and turmoil in Greece. The country is on verge of bankruptcy. It's already defaulted on IMF payment. And it's the first developed country ever to default like that.
Yes.
So the banks certainly need money. So what will happen is if they don't get money, Greece will probably be forced to have some kind of a IOU note system, which is more or less a parallel currency. And there are going to be serious problems with that. So the next few days, the first thing they need is to go back to the table with the other countries and say, after this referendum, this is what we bring to the table. And it's up to the other countries to say, okay, we'll lend you a little more, or they'll say, no, I'm sorry, you defaulted, which is also a possibility because, many countries in EU want to give a message to other countries in EU, the other weaker economies, that don't think you can mess around and get away. So they might like to make Greece as an example. That's what some analysts say. So it's a very uncertain and difficult time for Greece.
All right, we'll leave it there for now for the moment. Thanks so much, Himansh, for joining us. Definitely tough times for Greece and, in fact, the Eurozone. But thankfully, at least here in India, we may not be seeing that much of an impact, at least on the markets. Thank you for joining us. Meanwhile, let's head on to the big national story now. And another death of a person linked to Madhya Pradesh's Vyapam scam. A woman trainee sub-inspector recruited through the employment exam was found dead in mysterious circumstances. The Chief Minister has denied that it had anything to do with the high-profile scam, but the opposition and victims' families are crying foul, with an estimated 34 to 47 people connected to the case having died so far.
The Supreme Court will hear a petition seeking the removal of Madhya Pradesh Governor Ram Naresh Yadav. The petition filed by a group of lawyers alleges involvement of Yadav in the irregularities in the Madhya Pradesh Professional Examination Board exam.
The series of deaths, including those of journalists, educationists and so many others. In these circumstances, we think it appropriate that the Supreme Court takes suo motu action and orders an appropriate probe to be monitored by the Supreme Court.
The BJP government continues to face political heat over the case. The Congress is demanding a CBI probe and the resignation of Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan to facilitate what it calls an impartial investigation.
जिस एक्सटेंट तक इस एसआईटी को जांच करनी चाहिए नहीं कर पा रही है, जिस समय हाई कोर्ट और सुप्रीम कोर्ट यह समझेगा, तो हाई कोर्ट और सुप्रीम कोर्ट जिस दिन आदेश देगा, उस दिन सीबीआई जांच के लिए पूरी तरह से हमारी मध्य प्रदेश की सरकार तैयार है.
The BJP in turn is accusing the Congress of playing politics, even as it maintained that the death of Jabalpur Medical College Dean Arun Sharma on Sunday was not related to the case.
46 से ज्यादा मौतें हो चुकी और सारे के सारे लोग या तो गवाह हैं, या तो एक्यूज्ड हैं, या तो विसल ब्लोअर हैं, और उनके सबकी एक मिस्टीरियस सर्कमस्टांसेस में मौत हो रही है. ये बहुत चिंता का विषय.
On Sunday, the Madhya Pradesh government agreed to get the Viceroy samples of deceased TV journalist Akshay Singh tested at AIIMS in Delhi. A doctor's panel conducted the autopsy on the body at the Dahod General Hospital in Gujarat. The panel has reserved their opinion.
Honorable Chief Minister Shri Shivraj Singh Chauhan has directed the Director General of Police yesterday to send the sample to AIIMS or CFSL in New Delhi.
There should be an independent CBI probe conducted into this whole sordid affair under the supervision of the Supreme Court.
Meanwhile, another Vyapam-linked death was reported on Monday. A 25-year-old woman trainee sub-inspector was found dead in a lake. She had got into the police force through an exam conducted by Vyapam.
सागर की जिस मृत्यु की आप बात कर रहे हैं, वो दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है, दुखद है, लेकिन मैं पूरी जिम्मेदारी से ये कह रहा हूं कि उस दुखद घटना का व्यापम या व्यापम की जांच से कोई संबंध नहीं है.
The police suspect suicide as the cause of her death. They said that her selection has nothing to do with Vyapam scam and she was not a suspected beneficiary. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
In other news, the Digital India initiative gathered more steam today with Telecom Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad launching a slew of broadband products. Prasad also announced that the ongoing e-governance initiatives will be revamped to align them with the principles of Digital India. The 4 new broadband products include a long-distance Wi-Fi system capable of extending Wi-Fi and IP connectivity to remote parts of the country, a solar-powered Wi-Fi system to operate in inaccessible terrain, a 100 Gbps OFC link to accommodate the growing demand for superior bandwidth, high speed and power efficiency, and a next generation MTNL network.
Cutting across party divide, the power of digital services is being recognized. Why? Because a digital connectivity leads to good governance. A digital connectivity leads to effective governance.
And now, in a landmark judgment, the Supreme Court today ruled that an unwed mother can be the sole legal guardian of a child without the consent of the father. The ruling said that it was not required of the mother to disclose the identity of the father and include him as a party to the guardianship petition in certain cases. It observed that the best interest of the child required to do away with the procedural requirement of issuing a notice to the father when a guardianship petition is moved. The court was adjudicated by a plea by a woman who challenged the statutory necessity of involving the father of her child in a guardianship petition, even though she never married him. On to weather woes now. And sudden burst of rainfall across North India did bring some relief from the hot and humid conditions, but normal life was paralyzed in the hill states of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. A flood alert was issued in both states following the Met Department's forecast of heavy rains in the coming days as well.
Heavy rains lashed North India on Monday. National capital Delhi saw a brief spell that brought much-needed respite from the hot and humid weather in the city. However, heavy downpour disrupted normal life in the hill states of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. Torrential overnight rains killed 2 people in Uttarakhand and washed away several houses. Trees were uprooted in many places, causing landslides. Power and water supply was hit badly in large parts of the state. Following the weatherman's forecast of similar weather conditions in the next few days, Chief Minister Harish Rawat has directed all district authorities to remain vigilant. In Himachal Pradesh, a flood alert has been sounded. The Met Department has appealed to people to stay away from river banks.
आने वाले दिनों में भी जो बारिश है वो जारी रहेगी. कम से कम जो 4-5 दिन लगातार जो बारिश हो सकती है और कुछ एक इलाकों में भारी बारिश होने की भी संभावना रहेगी.
We are trying our best, keeping the finger crossed. और हम रेडी है. किसी भी भगवान करे कोई दुर्घटना हो ना हो, भगवान करे कोई त्रासदी न हो, पर फिर कुछ हो भी जाए हम उसको मीट करने के लिए पूरी तरह से तैयार हैं.
Meanwhile, in Assam, the flood situation turned grim after hours of incessant rains. As many as 65,000 people in 125 villages were badly affected. More than 3,800 hectares of crop area is submerged. At least 5 deaths have been reported so far from the region. Bureau Report, Rajya TV.
And now let's get you more updates from across the country in Nationwide. Pakistani troops violated ceasefire in Jammu and Kashmir, targeting 6 border outposts along the border since Sunday. Pakistani troops fired small arms and 82mm mortar shells, triggering panic among the villagers. BSF troops retaliated, resulting in exchanges which continued till early on Monday. India and Bangladesh have launched a joint survey to record the choice of nationality of those residing in enclaves on the eastern border. Those close to 52,000 people in 162 enclaves in each other's territories are awaiting citizenship after the two nations struck the historic land boundary deal. The survey is expected to be completed by the 23rd of July. A special court has summoned former Coal Secretary H.C. Gupta in the coal scam case. Special CBI judge took cognizance of the charge sheet filed by the CBI pertaining to alleged irregularities in allocation of a coal block to one of the accused firms in Chhattisgarh. H.C. Gupta has been asked to appear before the court on the 3rd of August. Noted actor Pallavi Joshi has resigned as member of the FTII Society, pledging support to the students' agitation against the appointment of Gajendra Chauhan as its chief. The agitation entered the 25th day today, with students boycotting the academic work after talks last week with Information and Broadcast Minister Arun Jaitley failing. International news now. In a day ahead of the deadline for the Iran nuclear talks, US Secretary of State John Kerry says that the West will have to make hard choices to reach the deal. Both Iran and the West are still trying to iron out differences as soon as possible. Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif also said that nothing is clear as of now.
At this point, this negotiation could go either way. If hard choices get made in the next couple of days and made quickly, we could get an agreement this week. But if they are not made, we will not.
Despite reports of progress in the Iran nuclear talks last week,
the US Secretary of State John Kerry indicating that consensus is still some way ahead. Iran's Foreign Minister Javed Zarif said differences still remain.
We want a good agreement, only a good agreement. And we're not going to shave anywhere at the margins in order just to get an agreement. Right now, we're aiming to try to finish this in the time frame that we've set out.
European Union's foreign policy chief and French foreign minister is in the Austrian capital for the last round of talks.
A couple of days we are here to check, to assess if a deal can be closed. And my message today is that if a deal can be closed, it's now. It's not time, the issue is political decisions that need to be taken now.
Toutes les cartes sont sur la table. La question principale est de savoir si les Iraniens vont accepter de prendre des engagements clairs sur ce qui n'a pas encore été clarifié.
The deadline for the Iran nuclear talks was extended to Tuesday after negotiators missed a June 30th deadline for the final agreement. The P5+1 group, the US, UK, France, China, Russia and Germany wants Iran to scale back sensitive nuclear activities to ensure it can't build a nuclear weapon. Iran wants international sanctions lifted in exchange for that. The major sticking points are how will sanctions be lifted and what will be the amount of nuclear capability that Iran can keep. The much-awaited deal could redefine relations between Iran and the West for years to come. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And that's all we have for you on the News at 6. Thanks so much for joining us.